They shoved her through the door so hard she nearly fell face first into the mud. The sound of the bolt sliding shut behind her felt louder than a gunshot. Lydia Hale stayed on her feet, only because pride wouldn't let her fall. Her hands shook, not from the cold, from the way the whole street had gone quiet just to watch her be thrown away. She did not know yet that someone was watching from the edge of that crowd. A man everyone feared. A man who lived where roads stopped and winters decided who survived. And she did not know that before the snow finished falling, her life would no longer belong to the town that had just discarded her. The mud outside the Grayson boarding house was thick and unforgiving, sucking at Lydia's boots as if it wanted to keep her there. Her single trunk landed beside her with a wet thud, splashing brown sludge up her skirt. "And don't come back," Mrs. Grayson screeched from the porch, her voice sharp as broken glass. "I don't run a charity for girls who can't pay." "I told you," Lydia said, forcing her voice steady. "My brother sent the money. It's late, that's all." Mrs. Grayson laughed, a cruel, hollow sound. "Late money feeds nobody. Out you go." The door slammed. The bolt slid home. Final. Lydia stood there in the cold Montana noon, her thin coat no match for November wind. Men slowed their steps to stare. A baker pretended to sweep. The sheriff glanced her way, then looked right through her. No one stepped forward. She dragged her trunk beneath the general store awning and sat on it, pulling her knees close. Her boots were worn thin. Her purse was empty. Winter was already breathing down her neck. That was when the light disappeared. A shadow fell over her. Wide, solid, blocking out the gray sky. She smelled him before she saw him. Pine smoke, cold iron, wet wool. Something wild. Lydia looked up. The man standing there was massive. Tall as a doorway, broad as a barn wall. His beard was thick and dark, threaded with gray, and his coat looked older than most buildings in town. Pale blue eyes studied her with an intensity that made her chest tighten. This was Rowan Blackridge. People whispered his name like a warning. They said he lived high above the tree line, that he spoke to no one, that the mountain had taken his wife and left him half feral with grief. Rowan shifted a heavy sack of grain on his shoulder, as if it weighed nothing. He glanced once at the closed boarding house door, then at Lydia, then at her trunk. "They put you out," he said. "It wasn't a question." Lydia straightened. "It appears so. You got family?" "A brother," she said, "working a claim east of here." Rowan nodded once. "That's a long walk. I'll manage." "No," he said calmly, "you won't." His gaze flicked toward the saloon down the street where a few men had started paying too much attention. "Cold'll take you. Or worse." Silence stretched. Rowan exhaled through his nose, like a man tired of arguing with fate. "I've got a spare." Lydia blinked. "I beg your pardon?" "A horse," he said. "Pack mare, and a room, lean-to off my cabin, stove works." Her heart slammed hard against her ribs. "I can't pay you." "Didn't ask." He shifted his weight. "I need help through winter, fire, hides, meals. You work, you stay warm. Come spring, you leave." It was said like a contract, cold, clean. But Lydia saw the way his jaw tightened when one of the saloon men laughed. Saw how he stood between her and the street without meaning to. "Why?" she asked quietly. Rowan met her eyes. "Because I got a horse that hates rain, and you look like you hate it more." Snowflakes drifted down, light and slow. Lydia looked once more at the town that had let her fall. Then she looked at the mountain man everyone feared. "I'm coming," she said. Rowan nodded. He lifted her trunk with one hand. "Storm's close, let's ride." The climb was brutal. Wind cut through her clothes, snow thickened. The town vanished below them like it had never existed. Rowan rode ahead, silent, his dark horse carving a path through heavy pine. Lydia followed on the pack mare, her hands numb, her teeth chattering beneath the heavy buffalo robe he'd tossed her. By dusk, the world was nothing but white and stone. Rowan pulled his horse to a stop and pointed ahead. A cabin crouched against the mountain, built from massive logs, smoke curling from its chimney. Home. Lydia could barely dismount. Her legs failed her. Rowan caught her without a word. For one brief second she was pressed against his chest, solid and warm. Then he stepped back. "Inside," he said. "Fire first." The cabin was dim but warm. The fire came alive under her hands, light dancing across shelves lined with jars and books. That surprised her. Rowan returned with her trunk and shut the door against the storm. "That room," he said, nodding to a small door. "Straw mattress. Wool blankets." "Thank you," she whispered. "Rowan," he corrected, "not Mister." They ate simple stew in silence while the wind screamed outside. "Safe. For now." After a while, Rowan spoke. "You're running from something." Lydia froze. "Who?" Her voice shook. "A man named Caleb Ward." Rowan's hand clenched on the table. "The land buyer." "He wants me," she said. "Like property." Rowan stood, lifted his rifle, checked it once, set it closer than before. "You're safe here," he said. "Pass will close by morning." Lydia lay awake that night, listening to the storm, knowing one truth with terrifying clarity. She had stepped into the loneliest place on the mountain, and somehow it already felt like shelter. Winter sealed the mountain shut by morning. Snow stacked against the cabin walls until the world beyond the windows vanished. The wind screamed through the pines like something alive, something angry at being denied entry. Rowan Blackridge moved through it all with quiet certainty, rising before dawn, feeding the fire, checking the barn, his routine carved as deep as the trails he trapped. Lydia learned the rhythm quickly. She learned how to coax heat from damp kindling, how to keep stew from scorching in a cast-iron pot, how to hang wet wool where it would dry without stiffening into boards. Her hands cracked, her knees bruised. She did not complain. Rowan watched from the edges. He spoke little, but he noticed everything. How she flinched at sudden noises. How she checked the door twice each night before sleeping. How she sang under her breath while kneading dough, a soft sound that filled the cabin like warmth. The silence between them was not empty. It was careful. One evening, while snow hissed against the shutters, Rowan dropped into the chair by the hearth with a quiet grunt. Lydia glanced up from mending a tear in his coat. "Your hand," she said. "It's fine." "You dropped the kettle." Rowan flexed his fingers. The joints were swollen, angry, old damage, old fights. "Let me," she said. He hesitated, then extended his hand like it might bite. Lydia warmed salve between her palms and worked it gently into his knuckles. Rowan sucked in a sharp breath, then forced himself to relax. "Don't fight it," she murmured. "I'm not used to gentle," he admitted. Her thumbs moved slow and steady. "Nobody is at first." The fire popped. Silence settled. "You remind me of her," Rowan said suddenly. Lydia's hands stilled. "Your wife?" He nodded once, eyes fixed on the flames. "She believed the mountain would love her back." His voice roughened. It didn't. Lydia did not speak. She let the quiet hold his grief. "I gave her this place," he said, "and it took her from me." He stood abruptly and crossed to the window. Snow pressed against the glass, endless and cold. "That's why you're in the spare," he said without turning. "I don't keep things long." Lydia rose. She stepped close enough to feel the heat of him. "I'm not something to lose," she said. "I'm still here." Rowan looked down at her, startled. For a moment, something cracked in his expression. Then he stepped away. "Sleep," he said. "We've work at dawn." Days folded into weeks. They worked. They endured. They learned each other in small ways. Rowan showed her how to skin rabbits, how to read the sky, how to tell when the mountain was listening. Lydia brought warmth back into the cabin. Bread. Laughter, once, a soft scolding when Rowan forgot to eat. Late one afternoon, the wind died without warning. The silence was wrong. Rowan froze mid-swing with the axe. Birds had gone quiet. Even the trees seemed to hold their breath. "Lydia," he said, low. She was already moving, eyes on his shoulders. "What is it?" Quote. "Someone's coming." He lifted his rifle and walked to the porch. 3 riders emerged from the tree line. The sheriff rode first, his face tight with effort. 2 men flanked him. Hard men, expensive coats. Rowan did not lower the rifle. "Afternoon," the sheriff called. "Long climb." "You're not invited," Rowan replied. The sheriff cleared his throat. "We're looking for a girl, Lydia Hale, left town owing money. There's also a claim of theft." Lydia's breath caught inside the cabin. The man with the scar spoke next. "We're here to retrieve property." Rowan smiled without humor. "Haven't seen her." The scarred man's eyes slid to the laundry line. "To the cabin. That's a woman's washing." "I take in laundry," Rowan said evenly. "Pays fine." The sheriff shifted. "Rowan, don't make this hard. Mr. Ward is offering $50. "Dead or alive?" Rowan asked. The sheriff didn't answer. Rowan worked the rifle lever. The sound echoed. "You have no warrant," he said. "You're trespassing." The men hesitated. They knew him, knew the mountain, knew better. They turned back. Rowan watched until they vanished. Then he bolted the door. "They'll return," Lydia said. "Yes." She swallowed. "Because of me." Rowan met her gaze. "Because of him." He pulled supplies from beneath the floor. "Ammunition, bandages." "We leave," he said. "High pass." "Old trapper's cabin." "No." Rowan stilled. "I'm done running," Lydia said. "You offered me shelter, not exile." "They'll burn this place." "Then we stand." Something fierce lit her eyes. Rowan recognized it. Survival. He nodded once. "Then you learn to shoot." The next 2 days were bruises and gunpowder. Rowan stood behind her, guiding her stance, his breath warm at her ear. "Lean into it," he said. "Be the rock." She fired. Again. Again. That night the cabin changed. Windows boarded, buckets filled, silence sharpened. Lydia knelt beside Rowan as he cleaned his rifle. "If it goes bad," he said quietly, "there's a tunnel. You run." She took his hands. "We fight together." Rowan closed his eyes. "I don't have much." "I want all of it," she said. He kissed her then, hard, desperate. Like a man who knew storms too well. The dogs barked. Rowan pulled away, blew out the lantern. "They're here," he whispered. Snow glowed blue under the moon, and the mountain held its breath. The dogs' warning did not fade. It deepened. Rowan stood still in the dark, listening past the barking, past the wind, to the space between sounds. Lydia held the shotgun the way he had taught her, stock tight to her shoulder, breath slow. Moonlight slid through the narrow firing slits. Snow reflected it back, turning the clearing into a pale stage. 3 riders appeared on the lower trail. Too obvious, too neat. "Decoy?" Rowan whispered. Lydia nodded. She had learned his voice. When it dropped like that, danger was already close. Rowan shifted toward the back window. "2 on foot," he murmured. Smokehouse sighed. A voice carried up the slope, smooth, confident. "Rowan Blackridge," the man called. "Let's not make a mess of this." Lydia's stomach tightened. She knew that voice from letters read aloud in boarding-house parlors. Caleb Ward, polished, certain, used to being obeyed. Rowan opened the front shutter an inch. "Get off my land!" Caleb laughed. "I will, with what's mine." He rode forward into the moonlight, fur-lined coat, clean gloves. A man, untouched by cold. "Send her out," Caleb said. "She stole from me. I'm feeling generous tonight." Lydia's chest burned. "He's lying," she whispered. "I know," Rowan said. Caleb lifted a paper. "Sad news from the mines," he called. "Your brother. Cave in. Quick, they say." The world tilted. Lydia's knees buckled. Rowan caught her arm. "Look at me," he said fiercely. "He's trying to break you." Tears spilled anyway. Thomas. "Whether he's gone or not," Rowan said, low and urgent, "you're still standing." Caleb smiled when he heard the sound she made. "You have nobody now, Lydia. Come out. I'll keep you warm." Rowan's hand tightened on his rifle. "Last warning." Caleb's smile vanished. "Burn it." The first bottle shattered against the porch. Fire bloomed fast, hungry, loud. Smoke poured under the door. Heat surged. Rowan fired. One of the men near the smokehouse dropped with a cry. Lydia swung toward the front as a figure rushed the door with an axe. "Now," Rowan said. She fired. The blast tore the axe from the man's hands and sent him screaming into the snow. "She's shooting!" someone yelled. "Kill them!" Caleb roared. The roof crackled. Rowan coughed, eyes stinging. "We move! Barn!" "We'll be cut down." "I'll draw them," he said. "You circle." "No." Rowan shoved her toward the back room. "Go!" The window shattered outward. Cold hit her like a slap. Lydia crawled through smoke and snow, heart pounding so loud she was sure they could hear it. Gunfire erupted at the front. Rowan's roar followed, a sound made of rage and refusal. She reached the woodpile and turned. Rowan burst from the flames, firing as he ran. He dropped one man, then another. Then a shot caught him hard in the leg. He fell. Men swarmed him. Caleb rode closer, face twisted with delight. "Where is she?" Rowan spat blood. "Gone." A man moved toward the back of the cabin. Lydia stood. She raised the shotgun, not at the men. At Caleb's saddle strap. She fired. The horse reared, screaming. The saddle slipped. Caleb shouted as he slid, 1 foot caught, dragged through firelit snow. Rowan's black stallion burst from the barn, eyes wild, answering his master's voice. Chaos exploded. Horses bolted. Men scattered. "Now!" Rowan gasped. "Run!" She ran to him instead. "Up!" she said, hauling his arm over her shoulders. "Move!" The cabin collapsed behind them, sparks chasing them into the trees. They vanished into the forest. Rowan collapsed against a pine, breath ragged. "You stayed." "I told you," Lydia said, binding his leg with shaking hands. "I don't run." Shouts echoed behind them. "Pursuit! Relentless!" They reached the ravine as dawn bruised the sky. A fallen log bridged the gap. Ice slicked its surface. The river roared far below. "We cross," Lydia said, "with my leg. Now." She went first, slow, careful, breath held. Rowan followed, inch by inch, teeth clenched. A shot cracked. Wood splintered near his hand. Caleb emerged, battered and mad, revolver shaking. "Nowhere left," quote. Rowan stopped mid-log. "You want the mountain," quote. Caleb raised the gun. "I'll take it." Lydia looked up. At the overhanging shelf of snow, remembered Rowan's warnings, the way sound traveled here. She drew his revolver, aimed upward. "What are you doing?" Caleb sneered. She fired. Once, twice, 3 times. The mountain groaned. Caleb's smile faltered. The shelf broke. White thunder fell. Snow swallowed men, horses, greed, and shouting whole. Silence returned. Rowan clung to the log, shaking. He looked across. Lydia stood in the drifting snow, gun smoking, eyes wide. "The mountain," she whispered. It answered. They reached a cave by nightfall, cold, dark, safe. Lydia built a fire, held Rowan through fever and pain. "You saved me," he murmured. "We saved each other." Outside, snow kept falling. And somewhere beneath it, the mountain decided what would never rise again. The fever came with nightfall. Rowan burned hot beneath Lydia's hands, his breath uneven, his skin slick despite the cold cave air. She fed the fire until the walls glowed orange, then knelt beside him, pressing snow-melted cloths to his forehead. "Stay," she whispered. "Don't you dare leave me now." His eyes fluttered. "Still here," he rasped. "Hard to get rid of." She almost laughed, almost cried instead. The bullet had missed the artery, but the damage was deep. Lydia cleaned the wound the way she'd seen women do back east. Steady hands, firm resolve. She tore the last of her petticoat into strips and bound his leg tight. Rowan groaned once, then settled. She stayed awake all night, feeding him water, holding his hand when the shaking came. When dawn crept pale and quiet into the cave, his fever broke in a long, shuddering breath. "You're stubborn," she said softly. He opened one eye. "Takes one to know one." They stayed hidden for days. Snow sealed the cave entrance like a curtain. Lydia learned how to ration food, how to move Rowan without causing him pain, how to listen for danger without letting fear eat her alive. On the fourth day, hoofbeats echoed faintly through the valley. Rowan stirred. "They'll come." She lifted his rifle. "Then we're ready." But the voices were different, familiar. "Rowan," the sheriff called. "If you're alive, answer." Rowan dragged himself upright. Lydia moved to his side, supporting him as they stepped into the light. The sheriff stared at the burned-out clearing below, at the clean white scar where the avalanche had torn the mountain open. "They're gone," Rowan said simply. The truth came out slow after that. Papers found in Caleb Ward's abandoned satchel, forged letters, false theft claims, land deeds stolen through threats and lies. The mountain had buried the men. The law buried the rest. "You won't be bothered again," the sheriff said quietly. "That man owned half the town, but not you." Rowan said nothing. He just nodded. They returned to the cabin site a week later. Nothing remained but ash, twisted iron, and scorched stone. Lydia stood where the hearth had been and felt the weight of it press into her chest. "I'm sorry," Rowan said. "I should have gotten you out sooner." She shook her head. "That place saved me, just like you did." They built again, not the same cabin, bigger, stronger, facing the sun. Rowan worked with a limp now, leaning on a cane he carved himself. Lydia worked beside him, hands rough, heart steady. Neighbors came, quiet and respectful. Men who once looked away now offered help. Winter loosened its grip. One morning, as the snow thinned to mud once more, a rider appeared on the trail. Lydia saw him first. "Rowan," she breathed. "Someone's coming." The man dismounted slowly, thin, pale, familiar eyes. "Lydia?" Her knees gave out. "Thomas!" Her brother caught her as she ran, laughing and crying all at once. He looked at the mountain man standing back, watching with guarded eyes. "That him?" Thomas asked warily. "The one they say stole you?" Lydia turned. She crossed the yard, took Rowan's scarred hand and held it tight. "He didn't steal anything," she said. "He gave me a life." Rowan cleared his throat. "You hungry?" Thomas blinked. "Yes, sir." "Good," Rowan said. "Dinner's on." That night, the cabin was full of light, of voices, of life. Rowan sat back and watched Lydia laugh with her brother, her hair catching firelight, her eyes bright with something that felt like peace. "You could go," he said quietly when she joined him. "Anywhere now." She took his face in her hands. "I already chose." The mountain was quiet, not lonely, just full. Spring did not arrive gently on the mountain. It came in fits. Melt by day, ice by night. The land testing whether they truly meant to stay. Rowan felt it in his leg first. The old wound ached when storms rolled in, a deep reminder of how close he had come to disappearing into the snow. Lydia noticed before he said a word. She always did. "You're limping more today," she said, handing him a mug of coffee. He shrugged. "Mountain reminding me who's boss." She didn't smile. She crouched and tightened the leather wrap around his knee, firm but careful. Rowan watched her fingers move with quiet awe. No one had tended him like this since before grief hollowed him out. The new cabin rose slow and steady. Logs were dragged, notched, stacked. Lydia learned to swing a hammer without flinching. Rowan learned to rest without calling it weakness. Each night they collapsed by the fire, sore and silent, their shoulders touching like it was the most natural thing in the world. One evening, as dusk bled purple into the sky, Lydia broke the quiet. "What happens now?" Rowan stared into the flames. "Now? The danger's gone. My brother's alive. I have money. Options." She hesitated. "Do you ever worry I'll wake up and remember I don't belong here?" He didn't answer right away. "I worry," he said finally, "that you'll stay out of pity or gratitude." She stood and stepped in front of him. "Look at me." He did. "I didn't fall for your spare room," she said softly. "I fell for the man who stood between me and the cold." Something loosened in his chest. Late that night, the dogs growled again. Not sharp, not frantic, just low. Rowan was on his feet instantly, rifle in hand. Lydia followed, heart thudding. A single rider emerged from the trees, sheriff's badge catching moonlight. "Easy," the man called. "Just me." Quote. He dismounted slow, hands open. "I rode up to tell you something before you heard it elsewhere." Rowan didn't lower the rifle. "They found Ward's accounts," the sheriff continued. "More names, more stolen land. Folks are angry." Lydia stiffened. "Angry how?" "Enough to want someone to blame." Silence stretched. "You're legends already," the sheriff said. "Some call you heroes. Others call you trouble." Rowan's jaw set. "Which are you?" The sheriff sighed. "I'm a tired man telling you the truth. Trouble follows men who don't bow." After he left, the night felt heavier. "They'll come," Rowan said. "Not with guns, with papers, pressure." Lydia nodded. "Then we stand." Days later, the pressure came. Two men rode up with polished boots and folded smiles. They talked of surveys, of roads, of opportunity. They spoke like Ward had once spoken. Rowan listened in silence. "No," he said when they finished. The men exchanged glances. "You're alone up here." "Winter's hard." Lydia stepped forward. "We aren't alone." The men left. The mountain stayed. That night, Rowan woke gasping, sweat cold on his skin. Lydia sat up instantly. "Dream," he said. "Fire, snow." She pulled him close. "You're here." He pressed his forehead to hers. "I'm afraid I'll lose you," she answered without hesitation. "You won't." Spring finally broke through for good. Grass pushed up through ash. Wildflowers bloomed where the cabin once burned. Life insisting. One afternoon, Rowan found Lydia at the edge of the ridge, staring down the valley. "I was thinking," she said, "about the girl in the mud." He joined her. "She's gone." "No," Lydia said. "She survived." She turned to him. "I don't want to leave when summer comes." Rowan's breath caught. "I want roots," she said. "Here, with you, if you'll have me." He took her hands, rough palms to steady warmth. "I ain't much of a future." She smiled. "Neither was mine." The wind moved through the pines, soft, approving. Below them, the valley stretched wide and open. And for the first time, Rowan didn't see it as something to defend. He saw it as something to share. Summer reached the mountains slowly, like it was asking permission. Snow retreated into the shadows. Streams swelled and sang again. The land breathed easier, and so did Rowan. His limp never left him, but it softened. Pain became something familiar, not something feared. Lydia learned the mountain in a new way. She planted a small garden in soil she carried by hand. She hung clean curtains in the windows. She learned which hours the light fell just right on the ridge, turning stone into gold. The cabin no longer felt like shelter. It felt like a home. One morning, Rowan woke to an empty bed and the smell of bread. He found Lydia outside, barefoot in the grass, laughing as the dogs chased each other in wide circles. He stopped where he stood. For years this view had meant survival, watchfulness, guarding what little he had left. Now it meant something else, belonging. Thomas rode up that afternoon with news from town. The courts had finished their work. Caleb Ward's name had been stripped from every ledger, his claims dissolved, his reach ended. They wanted to give Lydia land, Thomas said. Compensation. Rowan stiffened. "I told them no," Lydia said quickly. "I already know where I belong." Thomas studied Rowan for a long moment, then nodded. You kept her safe. Rowan swallowed. She kept me alive. That night, the mountain was quiet in a way Rowan hadn't heard in years. Not empty, not waiting, resting. He and Lydia sat on the porch, fireflies blinking in the dark like small stars. You ever regret it? He asked suddenly. Coming with me? She leaned into his side. Every day I wake up, afraid I'll lose it. He turned to her. That's not regret. She smiled. No, it's gratitude. Rowan was silent for a long time. Then he reached into his coat and pulled out something small, wrapped in cloth. I don't have rings, he said, or speeches. He opened his hand. Inside was a simple band, hammered from silver, imperfect and strong. I made it from the mountain, he said, if you want it. Lydia didn't answer right away. She took the ring, slid it onto her finger, and pressed her forehead to his. I want you, she said, every season. They were married quietly. No crowd, no town, just Thomas, the dogs, and the mountain standing witness. Lydia wore a simple dress. Rowan wore his best coat. When he took her hands, they were both shaking, not from fear, from the weight of choosing each other. Years passed. The cabin grew older, stronger. Children came, loud and fearless, climbing rocks Rowan once warned Lydia away from. Laughter replaced silence. Footprints replaced solitude. Sometimes, when storms rolled in, Rowan still woke tense, still listened for danger. But Lydia was always there, hand in his, steady, real. One evening, long after the children had gone to sleep, Rowan sat alone on the porch, watching the sun sink behind the peaks. He thought of the man he had been. Angry. Empty. Certain he deserved loneliness. Then he thought of the woman thrown into the mud below. And the choice he made. Lydia joined him, settling into the chair beside his. You thinking again? She asked. About how close I came to missing everything, he said. She took his hand. You didn't. Quote. Rowan squeezed back. The mountain no longer felt like a penance. It felt like a promise kept. And somewhere below, Dirtwater Creek went on, with its noise and dust, and small cruelty. But up here, the wind moved gentle through the pines, and the fire burned steady. A lonely mountain man had offered his spare, and found he had everything he needed. If you felt this tale in your heart, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe to Archives of the Wild West, where every story rides through the dust, the danger, and the kind of love that never dies. See you in the next tale, partner.